all the little, like, I don't know, you get the, like, romantic twitches.
I don't want to taste like that. That's, honestly, that's worse than saying fish.
What? It's a good book. I highly recommend that you read it.
4.5 stars, solid, cozy, sweet, non-spicy, fantastical, colorful, gives you the romantic shakes. Okay? Wow.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's November wrap-up time, all right? And to be honest, I didn't hit all those books that I had on my TBR, which is not surprising. All of those books, like, they were all like 600-page books, so I didn't get to all of them. But I read 4, which I am okay with. I am proud of. I have a tendency to kind of like compare myself to other booktubers or bookstagrammers or whatever it might be, and I always feel like I don't read enough, but I did what I was able to do, and 4 books is still good. I'm 1 a week. I'll take it. But I read 4 books, and then I have 3 novellas from, Weird Ass Romance Book Club, of course. So I will be going over those. I will spoil them. I will let you know. But as far as the 4 books go, they kind of ranged, honestly. Like, as far as plot lines, there actually was a lot kind of going on between all of these different books, and it definitely ranged as far as what my enjoyment was, really. I kind of hit the full spectrum. I DNF'd some. I had others very middle ground, and then I had one that I've already talked about, but now I'm fully gonna gush over it. But it's completely my favorite book of all time. I've never had a book affect me like this. It's literally the type of book where I feel like if my house was on fire, I'm gonna grab it. I love it so much. The comedy, the romance, there's not even any spice in it. It was amazing, and I highly recommend it to everybody. It's like in Princess Bride, you know how they're reading that, the movie, when they're reading that and they're reading that to the kid who's sick. It's a great book to read when you're sick. It just gives you all the little, like, I don't know, you get the, like, romantic twitches. But anyways, we'll get to that later. Starting off with the first book, let's just jump in. This was A Court of Nightmares. Nikki recommended it to me, and it's a vampire book. It's a Why Choose. It's definitely dark. I would say more dark atmospheric. There's a touch of some stuff in the beginning that kind of have to do with rejection and her response to it, and, she's definitely not being healthy about it. But that's so very quick, like very, very quick first couple of chapters, and then after that, it's much more of an adoring sort of romance. So, just so you know, in case you're going to read it. But this one, I'm really sorry, Nikki, but I didn't like it. I DNF'd it at 200 pages. It's a 600-page book. This was the one from my TBR video where it had that weird comment about the leg emoji and the spider, and I just had to know what that meant. I did get to that, but it just, it fell flat for me. I'm sorry. The beginning's really cool. The whole premise behind it really is, we're in this sort of vampire world, or vampires are present in our world. They have a totally different origins than what we're used to. It definitely doesn't have Dracula vibes, so that was neat. It almost felt underworldish in a way. But you have a girl who's rejected by this king of this court, and it really affects her. Like, when you don't accept a mate bond, it basically makes the other person deteriorate. So that happens in the beginning, and she ends up going through some circumstances. I won't say what, but she goes through some circumstances, and she ends up coming to these 7 vampires who you can kind of think of like gods in a way, okay? They're kind of the executioners, if you will. They're determining good and evil in this vampire world. But she's the first female of them, so they're immediately just very adoring of her, and they're trying to solve this big problem because something's going to be coming, some sort of reckoning, where it's almost going to be like the apocalypse for the vampires. So they're going to try and solve that. Okay, that's the premise of the book. Where I got to, I only was the first 200 pages. My issue was that the beginning, super sick, really cool. I felt like the author spent a ton of time on it. But then around chapter 10, it kind of just deteriorated for me. When she comes into the fray with these guys, she had done some pretty terrible stuff, and none of them have any sort of apprehension towards her, and they're all immediately adoring. And when I say adoring, it's like a 16-year-old lovesick teenager sort of vibe. So I struggled with that, just with the way that they were kind of loving her, and all of them kind of felt like the same character. They all have different powers, which were really cool. The guys were really cool in that sense. But personality-wise, I couldn't really tell the difference between them, you know? And so having no conflict and no struggle within the relationship was kind of boring. It was just kind of a lot of sex, so this definitely has spice, but it's just kind of there on the page. It didn't really add anything to the story, so I didn't like that. But even the rest of it, for the rest of the way through the 200 pages I was in, everything's just kind of handed to her. There's no struggle anywhere within it, if that makes sense. So not within the love story between her and these 7 guys, but also she gets all these new powers. She literally can figure them out and has a total grasp on them within 5 minutes, where these guys took decades. When they finally get to the plot, which is about 200 pages in, that's where you're getting action. So you're kind of outside of this castle, outside of their relationship. Something really terrible bad happened, and she immediately is capable of finding the bad guy. Like, she zeroes in like that. So there's just no struggle. It's all handed to her. So I just didn't enjoy that, and I'm sorry. I don't want you to feel bad. I wasn't jiving, man. I just need a little more conflict, you know? I want the ups and downs of the relationship. Also, random side note, there's some questionable lines within that. One is like, one of the guys mentions that she tastes like blood. Makes sense, vampire. Okay. But she tastes like blood and death. I don't want to taste like death. That's honestly, that's worse than saying fish. You know? So, ugh. And then there's another comment about how his spend was scalding, and I just immediately went to him like, bro, that's an STD. Okay? Like, something's wrong there. I also thought it was funny that she has her period. They can end up controlling it, so it's very rare to actually have like a baby because you can control your own period. But she gets her period, and immediately the guys are like, oh, what's wrong? Because she's in pain. And one of the other guys ends up having like a triggering response, and she just shuts it off. What? Like I said, everything's handed to her. She doesn't even have to deal with periods, bro. Come on. It wasn't for me. But for those of you who liked it, I'm glad. I am very, very glad. But anyways, moving on from there, the next one that I read was actually the one that is like my all-time favorite freaking book now. I wasn't sure what I was really going to think about it. I almost didn't read it. I literally chose it for my Sisterhood of the Traveling Book over on my Patreon. I almost didn't choose it, and I'm so glad I did. This is the coziest, most cute, comedic, sweet book I've ever read in my life. Literally perfect book for like when you're sick to read. It gives you those like kind of like, I don't know, romance twitches, the romance shakes, where you're just, it's something so cute, you have to put your book down, you're just like, oh my God. That sort of vibe. It's so flippin' cute. It's everything about it is just made me smile, made me beam, made me giggle, just made me feel good. It was amazing. It's a retelling of The Labyrinth, and you can think of The Labyrinth, the 1980s movie with David Bowie. It's a retelling of that. Like, you have very similar characters to that. The Worm, if you ever wanted the Worm to be more prevalent in the movie. Well, now it's a she, and she's in the book, and she's phenomenal. So it's a good freaking book. I really, really recommend that you read it. I didn't know how I was going to take it because there's no spice. I was entertained the whole way through. It's so insanely well written. I don't know how she's not professionally published. She knows how to write very, very well. The romance between them, like, you have all of those, like, you know, you have the brushing and the almost kisses and the little kind of fighting and the flirting. It's just good. It's just so, so good. And her character is so complex in her personality. Like, she was pissing me off, don't get me wrong. I loved her at times, and then other times I'm like, what the hell are you doing? So it was fun. It was good. I'm giving it 4.5 stars. The reason why it's not a full 5-star is the end of the book, I felt like it was no longer a romance. Kind of finished off the plot, but you lost the romance quality. So that was just my own little beef. There's nothing wrong with it. I just wish the romance was really the whole way through the book. And if you read it, you'll see what I mean. But it's a good book. I highly recommend that you read it. It's so flippin' cute. It's a reimagining of The Labyrinth, like I mentioned, but it's literally like a gas lamp, Victorian the fae, the fairies, the trolls, mermaids, all of these characters, very fantastical, very fairy tale, already lives within the city. We're not in a human world or a human only world. So it's a reimagining, honestly. It's a total reimagining. It has the elements of the David Bowie stuff, but it's a reimagining. So solidly good. Honestly, I feel like I could finish the book and then immediately restart it. Never felt that way before in my life, ever. So I'm just saying, it's good. Give it a shot. If you don't like it, that's okay. But I loved it. It was so flippin' cute. So flippin' good. But anyways, I'll move on from there. 4.5 stars, solid, cozy, sweet, non-spicy, fantastical, colorful, gives you the romantic shakes. Okay? Anyways, moving on from there, I finally read, because this was a part of Discord, I think for August, when the romance readathon was going on, and I didn't read it. But this was Captive of the Horde King. It's a sci-fi book where it's based on alien romance. And it feels very much like you have the, why can I never remember the name? Game of Thrones, Drogo, the people he's a part of, can't think of them, but these aliens very much have that vibe, living off of the land, much more primal, much more gruff, and there's a human settlement on their planet, and they have to live within certain means and basically live kind of how these aliens do. They need to respect these sorts of rules. And her brother, the girl that we follow, her brother does something bad. So the aliens come and she basically sacrifices herself. So arguably, she's not a captive because she gave herself away. This is just a small thing that I had. But she ends up going to the alien encampment and he wants her as his queen. So the whole storyline is really about their love story. Purely. There really isn't much going on. It's her kind of learning how to live within his society, but it's definitely solely focused on their romance. So the whole book is basically them interacting with one another. My issue, I guess, I gave it 3 stars. I just kind of was so aware that I was reading. I didn't feel much as far as their romance. I didn't feel invested in any of the characters. I didn't feel invested in their relationship. It just felt, I don't know, kind of just blasé, I guess you could say. So I don't really want to read the other books. And I was watching Hannah's video and she was talking about as the books kind of move along, I guess the 3rd one or maybe the 4th one, the books start to get much longer too. And honestly, I even felt with this book that we could have cut some stuff out I didn't think was necessary. So I don't know. I don't want to keep reading them. Ugh, I feel so bad. I don't seem like, I can't really think of any book that someone has suggested me that I've ended up liking. So I just feel like my brain, and therefore me, is just being a little bitch. Okay, I don't know what I like. I have questions. I don't understand myself. So, what the heck? I just want to like what other people like. I don't know what's wrong with me. But anyways, that one, if you're someone who's into alien romance, maybe you'll really like it. Because honestly, most people gave it 4 and 5 stars over on the Hideaway Discord, which I'll link down below if you guys need that. But I just didn't jive. I don't know. I could see the romance on the page. I just couldn't feel it. So that was just kind of a bummer. But I also read that right after I read How to Train Your Goblin King, and that's my favorite book ever now. And I think that just put me in like a sweet spot, almost made me want to read more historical romance. So I don't know if that's kind of coloring my opinion. Okay, so definitely take that with a grain of salt. It's probably the same thing for A Ship of Bones and Teeth, which April, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, girl. But I read that because April's been wanting me to read it for a long time. And this was from Karina Halley, which the only other book I read from her is A River of Shadows. And that was the book that, in the beginning, obsessed with it. Oh my God, so insanely atmospheric, had the horror vibes, so cool. But then halfway through it felt like a completely different book. There was a total shift. So I kind of have some issues with Karina Halley. This one, I didn't feel that way. I didn't end up finishing it. I don't really want to call it a DNF. I kind of just put it down and I haven't wanted to pick it back up. Where the other book, The Court of Nightmares, I full on DNF'd it. I just couldn't handle it anymore. Where this one, I just kind of set it down and I'm just kind of, I'll get to it when I get to it, I guess. But I got about a quarter of the way through, I think, or maybe a little bit over. And it's not bad. It's Pirates of the Caribbean meets The Little Mermaid, so much more adult. It's definitely going to have spice to it. And there's some fun little moments where you can really see The Little Mermaid within it, and also the Pirates of the Caribbean. So when you see those like specific scenes or those like almost Disney lines, I don't know, it's just fun. It kind of just, I don't know, puts a little pep in your step. At least for me, it just makes me go, ooh, I noticed that. But I kind of just felt like I was reading the romance. I wasn't feeling it. I never really got to a part between our main girl and our guy, the main love interest, of them kind of actually coming together, kissing, that sort of thing. She's attracted to him, but I never really felt any sort of, I don't know, tension or anticipation. So they kind of have a cat and mouse relationship, not in a toxic way, but he's very playful towards her, you know? But he seems like he's going to be more of the adoring type, where Prince Eric, because this is basically the Little Mermaid after she had gotten married, you know? But Prince Eric is a total dick. He's a terrible person. You won't like him. He's incredibly toxic, and that's going to be on the page. So there's a little bit of dark toxicity within it, but that's really in regards to Prince Eric. Once she gets to her main love interest, it's much more healthy. So this is a dark book. I don't know if I really want to say dark atmospheric. I think it's intended to be, but it didn't feel atmospheric to me. I didn't really feel or see the world that much. There's much more coming out of their sort of dialogue. There's not a ton of world building, in my opinion, but it's meant to be more on the darker side, but I almost don't know where to put it because I don't think toxic is right. That's just in the very, very beginning. And dark atmospheric also doesn't quite feel right either, if that makes sense. It just, I don't know. I wasn't driving with it. Again, take it with a grain of salt because this was after I read How to Train Your Dragon King, and I was obsessed with it. I honestly just kind of want to read historicals now. So it's putting me back on that train. Those are the books that I read. They, like I said, kind of ranged the whole span as far as like star rating goes. But for the novellas here, these were, God, I don't know. I mean, they were pretty great. One of them was disgusting. We'll go over that very briefly. But basically, I was pre-gaming it before we had our book club meeting for Weird Ass Romance. And I found another turkey sort of Thanksgiving book. And it was terrible. I don't remember the name of it. But to be honest, that's fine. Because don't read it. But essentially, it was almost more like kind of like a college fraternity sort of initiation test in a way. That wasn't the plot, but it was, that's the best way to describe it. Essentially, you have this guy who's like, he's supposed to be a good guy within the society, and he takes in these men who aren't able to feed themselves on Thanksgiving, but he basically tells them to fuck a raw turkey and go inside of it, and then he bakes it. So that's what it's about. It's not romance. I don't know why it's under the romance umbrella on Amazon, but it's not. So that's basically what it's about, and it's disgusting. And then he makes them eat it. So it's, like I said, fraternity initiation crap. It was bad. Don't recommend. The next one we read, I can't remember the full name, but it was the Were Turkey one. I think it's Stuffed by the Were Turkey. This was great. I'm not going to lie. I was thinking this was going to be a little bit more like Corn with a P, but it wasn't. It was pretty freaking funny. It had to do with this vegan chick, and she rescued this turkey. And the Were Turkey, fantastically, does he start to turn into a man? Yes, but his head remains turkey. So it's just the visual. You know, the visual's fantastic. And she is having so much fun getting stuffed. Okay? Are there mentions of him basically, you know, he's climaxing and he is a turkey. So is he saying like gobble gobble and things like that? Heck yeah, man. That was great. That author knew exactly what that book needed to be, and she delivered. So fantastic job there. The last one, the longer one that we read for the book club, well, I think it was called Full Sack. Wow. Honestly, but we have a girl who her dog or her cat is dying of cancer, so she goes to this magical being called Raccoon. I don't know what to call him, but he's a magical being of some sort, and the way that it works is it's kind of through sexual favors, and she turns out to be like his mate, and he asks her to take him to Thanksgiving to her family. And she says her family's kind of crazy, so she doesn't want to, but she'll do it as long as he'll cure her cat. And so while they're at the house with all the family, they're a hoot and a half. But while they're there, they're basically kind of banging it out. They're getting frisky with one another. And she learns how his magic works. Specifically, okay, prepare yourselves here. Specifically, when you do stuff to him and he's about to have his big O moment, okay, his sack generates whatever you want. So at one point, she asks for a toaster because he wants to demonstrate what he's able to do. And out of all the freaking things that she asks for a toaster. And his balls, they engorge to a point and they start feeling hard and angular and things like that because there's a toaster in his balls. Okay? There's a freaking toaster in his balls. And then he has to get it out. So it moves through the shaft and then shoots out onto the bed. He can make whatever you want. All right? What? Okay? The toaster's the weird one, I'm not going to lie. But then the turkey gets ruined. Her mom's turkey gets ruined, so they need a fresh turkey so mom doesn't freak out. So, they go off into a room. She, sucks one off. And then a turkey flies out of his dick. So, you should be grateful. It was ridiculous. It was insane. So it's one of those books that just, gives you joy. All right. It's ridiculous in the extreme. Feel free to read it if you want. I kind of spoiled it, but feel free to read it. It was fun. I can't believe people think of this stuff. It's amazing. So anyways, that's what I read. That was my November wrap up. Like I said, How to Train Your Goblin King. Hell yeah. Please go read it. So good. So cute. I'm waiting for her other book, which is like more of a Cinderella revamp. But that's not till 2024, man. Oh, and like the end of 2024. So I got to wait a long time. But anyways, I hope you guys like that. I'll catch you later. I'll see you over on the Hideaway Discord. Or if you're going to be a part of the Once Upon a Readathon, we have that Discord as well. Or if you're over on my Patreon. There is the free tier, by the way. It's not all paid tiers. So feel free to hop on over there if you want to, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, I'll catch you later. Bye.